Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. The purpose of this evening's adjournment debate is to discuss the East-West Rail consultation and North East Bedfordshire, and I wish to draw the Minister's attention to the flaws caused by the consultation process for the East-West Rail route decision from Bedford to Cambridge. This is not a debate to argue for or against the railway in principle, nor is it a debate to support or oppose any particular route corridor or line of route. The purpose of this debate is to expose the significant problems of this consultation, which have created a significant deficit of trust with many of my constituents, and to request the Minister to investigate these many concerns with how the East-West Rail project between Bedford and Cambridge is progressing. As we have seen over the last 2 decades, indeed over the last 2 weeks, people are increasingly sensitive to top-down initiatives which fundamentally change their communities and over which they believe their voice has not been heard. I would like to thank local parish councils and their coordinating group, Be Fair, for their forensic analysis in preparing for this debate, and mention that I live near to Bedford Station. I welcome the Minister, who has been very open with his time and attention to this project. Finally, may I thank the Chief Executive Officer of East-West Rail, who has today agreed to join me in walking the routes later this month. Now, the flaws in this consultation are multiple. Individually and collectively, they have broken down the trust of many of my constituents. Let me briefly list the main concerns raised with me. The consultation exercise gives every indication of being purposefully designed to reduce the interest and participation of residents in the area ultimately selected for the route. Critical cost assumptions have escalated wildly and have never been open to proper scrutiny, and are facts that were dramatically changed after the consultation had closed, making the least attractive route the most attractive route, not providing constituents with an opportunity to comment on that, and giving every impression of being a fix. The environmental impact assessment was cursory and falls far short of our net zero expectations, and may result in a brutal scarring of the Bedfordshire countryside forever. Critical local authority input to the consultation, upon which the Minister and his department will rely, from Bedford Borough Council, was submitted without approval from the Council as a whole. A secret plan containing flaky economic assumptions, airbrushing out references to existing homes that will have to be demolished, and potentially concealing acceptance of additional housing development as the price to be paid for the chosen route. Finally, a failure to account for multiple changes, from COVID to an emphasis on freight, to a more polluting fuel, to yet still rising costs. Changes that risk making this rail line between 2 leading universities not the shining 21st century example of global Britain, but a polluting white elephant with potentially very significant cost overruns. The 2019 consultation exercise was not statutory, but as the phrase goes, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. This consultation was not done well. Many parish councils on the potential routes were not contacted, including the 3 in my own constituency, at Colmworth, at Stapler and Wilden, all of which are on Route E, the current preferred route. The issuing of postcards notifying residents of the consultation were sent to only some residents in the affected areas and not to all residents. Coverage of those postcards was variable, with some wards receiving 5% coverage and other wards 20% coverage, with no explanation for the variance. Of the responses received to the consultation, fully half were made from supporters of a single charity, which made obviously a tremendous effort to consult their own members, which raises the question about why East-West Rail was not able to generate a fraction of that participation. All of the in-person consultation events, not one of them was held in the area that was ultimately selected as the preferred route. Madam Deputy Speaker, these facts are the foundation for the lack of trust. I have spoken to countless residents who say they only found out about the railway after their opportunity to have their say was done. This is very shaky ground upon which to proceed. In the 2019 consultation documentation, there were 5 route options, A through E. Routes A, B, C and D had costs of between 2 billion and 2.6 billion. Route E, the one subsequently chosen, had a substantially higher cost figure, £1 billion higher than the average of the others, at 3.4 billion going into the consultation. In the documentation released after the consultation, the cost figures for each of the routes A, B, C and D were raised by more than 1.3 billion, with increases rising between 50% and 80%. Yet the cost for route E, however, were only changed by 9%, and no satisfactory explanation has been provided for why East West Rail got the cost so hopelessly wrong on 4 of the route options, and so forensically right on the one they selected. The consequence was that route E went from being the most expensive to the second cheapest and became the preferred route. It is clear why many residents feel cheated by a consultation that gives every appearance of having their numbers fixed after their right to be consulted has ended. Does the Minister agree that the change in cost estimates played a significant role in the route decision process? Does he agree with me that this change clearly indicated that the consultation was done too early and gave a misleading impression to consultees? Does he worry, as I do, that the Treasury should be highly sceptical of any project cost estimates made in future by East West Rail? There remains, 2 years after the first consultation of this route, considerable mystery about the costs and benefits of each route. As one constituent advises me, these uncertainties and the general lack of financial transparency indicate the clear risk of future cost overruns with a failure to achieve claimed economic benefits. I have asked East West Rail for a detailed session with me and others to unpack the costs and assumptions. Will the Minister nudge East West Rail to grant this meeting? CPRE for Bedfordshire has stated its firm opposition to the route selected and highlighted severe limitations in the consideration of the environment in this consultation. I will give way to the honourable friend from Bedford if the Deputy Speaker permits.
I thank the honourable member for giving me way. I also entered the ballot to speak on behalf of my constituents, but clearly I wasn't as lucky as he is in the draw. So I share his concerns on the environmental impact of East West Rail, which is why I have a call for the full electrification of the line. It is understandable that the government would even consider building new transport infrastructure going into 2030s without clean energy being a priority. What puzzles me, Mr. Speaker, is that Route E passage has been known for at least 3 years now. And honourable member can correct me if I'm wrong. He claims to be neutral about routes. But when Route E was confirmed in January 2020, he said, and I quote, "I'm pleased that the government has made this announcement to progress investment in this important rail link." So he can perhaps clarify that. So I'll come back again.
Thank you. Richard Fuller.
Well, you may or may not come back in. I think that's up to me to decide. And I think, Madam Deputy Speaker, having granted the honourable gentleman the opportunity to speak on his constituents, it's rather strange that he took that opportunity to try and quote or misquote my own views to try and sow division on this issue. Actually, what he should be doing is speaking up for his constituents whose houses are being demolished as part of this process. That's what I thought he was going to intervene about, but apparently not. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I was saying, there is also a more fundamental question that CPRE has raised, and with which I agree, that the detailed assessment of environmental impact is being done right at the end of the process, rather than being front and centre at the start of the process. They rightly would ask, how can a route that is longer, hillier, requiring significant additional construction, and carving its way through open countryside, have a carbon footprint that is consistent with our net zero targets? As a result, environmental impact is seen as the guise of mitigation rather than as a full part of a proper assessment. We cannot be a government committed to biodiversity and protection of our natural habitat if we continue this practice. The Minister, indeed the Prime Minister, has the opportunity with East West Rail to take a stand on the matter. So will the Minister raise directly with Number 10 these environmental concerns and gain their assurance that this project, with all its changes, has their endorsement as being fully compliant with the Prime Minister's green agenda? Now, in major project consultations, the opinions and views of local authorities are a crucial input, and they are the voice of local opinion, and local authorities undertake many of the facilitating functions of land acquisition, planning, construction mediation, amongst others. The Minister had every right to expect a local authority to act democratically and sensitively in being that voice and providing its input to him. Yet this was definitively not the case with Bedford Borough Council's submission to the 2019 consultation, which was neither presented to, debated by, nor voted on by local councillors. Indeed, not one of the councillors in my wards in my constituency were given that courtesy. Essentially, the directly elected mayor of Bedford submitted his secret plan that added costs, made journey times longer, and created an environmentally brutal route. Now, I fully appreciate the mayor was committed to a line running through the centre of town rather than to a parkway station, but that personal commitment did not give him or his executive the right to bypass his own council's scrutiny. He may say that he had that discretion, but my constituents feel duped. And for what? What was the big economic gain for the borough? The council's own analysis says that the proposal adds just 0.05% to annual economic growth. 0.05% is hard to justify to the owners of homes that will have to be demolished. Further, there are unanswered questions whether the push for this route required the Borough Council to accede to additional future housing growth in the borough, essentially whether the plan was secret because it stored up a development bombshell for rural North Bedfordshire. So can the Minister advise me what significance the input of a local authority has on his department's evaluation of rail route options? Can the Minister allay the fears of my constituents that with regard to additional housing or development expectations, there was no direct or indirect communication with Bedford Borough by his department or any other government department as a result of the routing of East West Rail through the town's centre? Engineering considerations for the route remain a source of significant contention. A consultancy was hired by the Borough Council to advise on engineering costs twice in the space of 2 months. In their first report, they stated that northern routes, quote, come at the price of increased construction costs, increased disruption during construction, longer journey times and increased operational costs, as well as increased congestions and other highway costs. 1 month later, they produced a second report stating that Bedford Borough Council, quote, Bedford Borough Council has developed its own preliminary Route E design that reduces the cost differential to Route A by nearly half and avoids much of the highway disruption. Can the Minister advise me, was he aware of what special engineering source was discovered by the Council in that 1 month? Their analysis, I believe, has proved highly influential with East West Rail, yet these figures from the Council have never been made open to external review, so that assumption can be questioned in detail. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, there have been a number of changes since the origination of this consultation. It originated in Lord Adonis's Oxford-Cambridge arc vision, essentially as part and parcel of acceding in this region between Oxfordshire and Cambridgeshire, including Bedfordshire, for the provision of 1 million homes. And yet, just a week or two ago, the Department of Housing confirmed to me that that 1 million homes target is no longer a target. We know that the other project of Lord Adonis's vision with the expressway is no longer a long expressway. It's been junked in Buckinghamshire. We know, Madam Deputy Speaker, that COVID has changed crucial traffic assumptions with greater working from home and with the opportunity for more office space in London for conversion to residential. We know that the vision for East West Rail has been cascading back in history in terms of its vision, from being a shining 21st forward-looking vision connecting our two of our great, potentially 3 of our great universities, to a 19th century fuel of dubious merit. The government has issued a 10-point plan for net zero, and yet in some ways there's concerns that East West Rail now stands directly against these ambitions. And as I said, we have more examples to show that people will change lifelong voting intentions to express their discontent with top-down projects that fundamentally change their surroundings. You know, I support East West Rail, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think it's a good idea. The vision has its strengths. But what we're being sold as the vision of East West Rail now is not what the original intention was. And worse still, the process of going from that original vision to where we are now has destroyed trust, destroyed faith, destroyed belief in East West Rail rather than building it up. People like infrastructure, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we talk about it a lot here. But when people think about infrastructure, what they're talking about is improvements to their town centres, making it easier for them to get access to a GP appointment, or ensuring that their child gets into a good local school. It's not thought of in terms of spatial frameworks or visions for the future by departed technocrats, or consultation exercises that treat people like fools. I urge the Minister to take these concerns and priorities seriously, play his part in restoring trust in this process, and give the people that rail connection that they want, can understand and believe in.
Heaton-Harris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate my honourable friend, the member for North East Bedfordshire, on securing this debate on the East West Rail route consultation and the role played by the proposed railway within his constituency. I welcome also his support for East West Rail as a concept at the very least. And I know this is shared by the vast majority of his constituents because, as he knows, he has instigated meetings where I've met a number of parishes and parish council leaders, etc., in his constituency, where the concept of the railway is very much welcomed. But they do have legitimate questions to ask, and I hope I can answer some today. I've listened carefully to his representations about the impact of East West Rail on his constituency and his concerns about this being a fair consultation, and I will try to answer many of them now. As he will know, a new railway line between Bedford and Cambridge is required to deliver the full East West Rail scheme between Oxford and Cambridge. In this vein, East West Rail Company held a consultation on route options. Route options, as my honourable friend described, A to E. We like Natalie described route options in the rail industry, between the 28th of January and the 11th of March 2019. The outcome of this consultation saw route E being selected as the preferred route option by East West Rail. As my honourable friend will remember, this was announced in January 2020. Conclusions for route E were reached using a number of assessment factors, such as faster journey times, lower fares, and faster road journeys through diverting road users to rail. The higher transport user benefits arise due to Route E serving the most households, both within the catchment area around Bedford Midland Station and the growing population in Cambourne. My honourable friend is aware that there's been another recent, he mentioned it, non-statutory consultation, which included 5 route alignment options for the Bedford-Cambridge section of East West Rail, as well as the concepts for train service provision and stations between Bletchley and Bedford. East West Rail Company is currently analysing the responses, and a preferred route alignment option based on the consultation feedback, application of the assessment factors and ongoing design work will be announced in due course. My honourable friend will also be aware that both consultations were non-statutory consultations and so were not a legal requirement for the project to continue. Indeed, they were East West Rail trying to ensure they were listening to the voices of people along proposed routes. However, East West Rail Company genuinely does want to hear from people affected and use their views to shape the design of the railway. It is, and as I hope my honourable friend understands, the new chairman of East West Rail Company is determined to listen to the views of people along that route. There are no fixed rules about a non-statutory consultation's duration, but the East West Rail Company decided to run the consultation for a period of 10 weeks. This was to provide opportunities to allow for virtual question and answer sessions, given the lack of in-person meetings that would be available because of the pandemic, and in trying to ensure people had enough time to respond in a meaningful way to it. My department is content that both consultations met open and fair consultation standards. A range of promotional activity took place in both consultations, including, as my honourable friend said, the sending of postcards to more than 120,000 households and businesses in the consultation zone for the first consultation. This number increased to 270,000 for the recent consultation to ensure the virtual nature of the consultation did not mean that people missed out the chance of taking part. Advertisements were placed in key local publications. Social media and local print were also utilised. Public consultation has been and continues to be a crucial part of the development of the East West Rail project, which is why the East West Rail Company has made great efforts to speak with as many local people as possible from an early stage, and whilst I'm Minister, will continue in this spirit as the project is progressed. Indeed, in my time as the sponsor minister for this project, I've tried to sit in on as many of these meetings as I can to see exactly what is going on and how people's views are being reflected. My honourable friend wants to give way first, and I will come to the honourable gentleman.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister is absolutely right. He really has been on the front foot engaging with people and also with me directly as well. But will he recognise there is a difference between speaking to and listening? And one of the concerns that my constituents have is that some of the options that could really affect things, they've closed down the conversation and they're not listening to their concerns.
Yeah, I completely get what my honourable friend has said, which is why I've tried my best, and I think I've succeeded in making sure that East West Rail actually is listening to people across the route. And I hope that he will see that reflected in what comes out of this current consultation as we move forward. Now, I think the honourable gentleman also wanted me to give way.
For giving me way, is very kind. Just two points very briefly. One is that I've been told there is no chance of rerunning this consultation. Is there any realistic chance of rerun this consultation? Because some people believe that it wasn't run properly. And secondly, will it support four-track option rather than six-track option? And four-track option will avoid demolition of houses in my constituency.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his points. I also would like him, if you wouldn't mind, taking a little question from me. But I believe he does support East West Rail as well, and so it's a question of actually making sure that his constituents and my honourable friend's constituents are listened to properly. So those that will be affected by construction of this new railway or elements of it do feel that their voices have been listened to, that their concerns have been acted upon, and everything has been done that can possibly be done to address these concerns. I do hear the point that he's mentioned about the four-tracking. I'm no engineer, so I'm not going to promise something that I cannot deliver, nor am I going to promise something that I don't I do understand, but I don't know where it is in the planning stages of East West Rail. But I will happily go away and talk to East West Rail about this, because I know this is something that they would be considering as an option moving forward, or at least I'm quite sure. And I'm very happy to give way to the honourable gentleman again.
I'm encouraged that he wishes to enlist me in support for East West Rail. That's the concept, right? But the Minister knows, Madam Deputy, sort of what motivates me, and that's, do the numbers add up? Does the thing add up logically? And there are the two fundamental concerns that I have, which he has not addressed, and maybe he will. Why is it right to go into a consultation with a clear set of numbers that go at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, close the consultation, and then present, ta-da, we've changed all the numbers around, and now we're going to go with the option that originally went in being the lowest cost, and now comes out being, the highest cost, now comes out being the best option. That doesn't look right, isn't right, and the Minister knows that if you build on shaky foundations like that, you erode trust at every further step. So will he please look at that issue again and enable East West Rail to try and help close that trust deficit on that particular issue?
I will always do everything I possibly can to help my honourable friend and his constituents and East West Rail close that deficit gap on trust, as he says, because I actually do believe there is a route through here, not a physical route, but a way of, we should be using the best practice to consult people on projects that will affect them at some point in time. I'm also determined to deliver this project at pace and on budget, because there have been huge problems in the past with big rail infrastructure projects that have run over time, and people's lives have been blighted for much, much longer than they ever should have been because of the incapacity to deliver that said rail project on time. This isn't going to happen on East West Rail, and I will do whatever I can to allay my honourable friend, his constituents' concerns, and I will happily talk to him separately and again about how he believes I am able to assist in doing that. But I'm really happy to assist, because public consultation has been and continues to be a crucial part of the development of this project, which is why the company's made all those efforts to speak to so many people. So my honourable friend may rightly be concerned about the impact. In fact, both my honourable friend and the honourable gentleman were rightly concerned about the impact the project will have on constituents' homes. It is entirely understood that the proposals will affect people's homes, businesses and farms in my honourable friend's constituency. East West Rail Company aims to minimise the negative impact on people's land and property and mitigate any unavoidable impacts. The East West Railway Company's recent consultation included proposals for an initial compensation scheme for those affected. Now, my honourable friend asked about whether I could jog the elbow of the East West Rail Company so they can have a meeting on the true costs, because my honourable friend is a good businessman, a good politician, a good representative of his constituents. But he also knows this is taxpayers' money that's funding this, and I know he wants to get the best value he can possibly get, as I do. And so I shall not just nudge the elbow of East West Railway. I will ensure that meeting happens in short order, and that all the documents that he requires before it are made available to him, so he can do the preparation work that he would like to do his job properly beforehand. I completely get the point he made about the environmental concerns. Now, I'm not one to go to number 10 to ask them to do something. I believe that is a tad above my pay grade. But I have been watching and continue to listen to my old friend about, is there evidence that quality environmental assessments have been made in the East West Rail consultation? That's the question he is essentially asking. Now, an appraisal was undertaken to assess the comparative environmental sustainability of the route options as part of the process for determining a preferred route option, as described in the preferred route option report. This assessment concluded that the routes via Camborne, routes B and E, were broadly comparable and have the fewest problematic areas with potential direct impacts on irreplaceable or sensitive features and the lowest likely mitigation effort. Now, East West Railway Company will continue to assess the potential environmental effects as part of the route alignment development work. An environmental impact assessment will be undertaken and an environmental statement submitted when East West Rail Company submits its development consent order application to the Planning Inspectorate. So it will be going by the letter and in the spirit of the rules and the law. He asked me about Bedford Borough Council's representations and Bedford Mayor's secret plan. I have no idea if the Bedford Mayor has a secret plan, but I'm quite sure that I truly believe that he would not have had undue influence over any of the plans of East West Rail. But I will happily go away again, because I've asked this question previously, but I will happily go away again and ask this question of East West Rail to see if there's anything that they can bring to me that can finally either put to one side what my honourable friend says, and so we can dismiss it, or if there is something in it, we can have it out in the open so everybody can see it, and then I think it will probably be a matter for local politics. But I do not believe that will be the case, because I do not believe there will be anything to see. But he did ask about the significance of local authority contributions to the consultation process. And I will come back to this point again and again and again. We want everybody and anybody who's interested and affected by the proposed route alignment and the development of this railway, to be involved in the design of this railway, to ensure that we get this process completely right. So I do believe there would have been significant conversations with the local authorities along the route and the East West Rail Company. Less so with my department, to be quite honest, because it's not necessarily the brief that we hold. But as my honourable friend knows, there will be many further opportunities for his constituents to raise issues for consideration, including a statutory consultation. In the meantime, anyone who wishes to make representations should obviously contact the East West Rail Company to have their voices heard. So with that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I hope I've answered a number of the points that my honourable friend has raised. I am determined that we are, and East West Rail is as open and as transparent as it can possibly be with the people, with him, other members of Parliament in interested areas and people affected